Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review, and today I'm going to be having a look at Madison County, which was the recently released backwards serial killer type film here in the UK, and I believe it came out in 2012 in the US. Now this review will be quite spoiler heavy because I'll have to sort of spoil some plot points to sort of talk about some of the criticisms I have. Not that the plot's all that surprising, but let's get started. So Madison County tells a story of 5 college kids who go on a trip up into the backwoods to write a thesis for one of their papers that one of them are writing. Now, when I first started watching this film, I actually kind of had quite high hopes. So I think it started quite well. So what I liked about it was the 4 sort of main characters didn't seem like your normal cannon fodder teen sort of slasher victims in this. They all seemed quite sort of sensible. None of them, I don't think, were particularly, super mega attractive and unrealistically, stupidly pretty and everything like that. They were attractive, but not stupidly so. It was shot quite well, I thought. I thought the photography was quite nice, and it looked like it had reasonable production values. I mean, this was all straight to DVD one, so I didn't really think it would be a particularly high budget. I'm certainly not saying it's a high budget film. But when you first started watching it, I thought, well, actually, it looks like it's, fairly well made. And that, that is true to a certain point. So I had quite hopes. And it even maybe was a little bit self-aware of the kind of sort of the rules of these type films initially. Early on in the film, they are travelling up to this Madison County, and they meet a local on the road who tells them to go take a shortcut on the sort of back roads and everything that would save them X amount of time. And in normal horror film tropes, and they'll go up there. But this makes a point of them saying, "What, you thought? Oh, we're going to go up there? You must be joking." So I thought, fair enough. Maybe they're going to their filmmakers are a bit more of a self-aware of the kind of things that happen in these type of films and the sort of the cliches that happen. But after that point, I'm unfortunate it does fall into cliches, and there are some big whopping cliches that this one likes to go along with. So the story comes, and they go to Madison County, and what it is they're trying to track down an author of a book who wrote about a serial killer in this small town, and apparently he's been kind of shunned by the sort of the community because they don't like people sort of talking smack about one of their own, basically. And apparently this serial killer has never been caught, and it was a lot of people are saying it's just fiction, but this guy sort of believes it and all that. And obviously we know he's going to be real, because otherwise there wouldn't be a film. So they try and find this author of this book, and then you hit the first cliches. They all decide to split up. And stuff starts becoming a little bit sort of odd, but they think people are trying to cover stuff up. And what's the first thing you do? It's going to be to split up, isn't it? No, it isn't. But that's what they do. So I was like, oh, okay, it is falling into these cliches, and it doesn't stop there. So the kids get picked off one by one by a serial killer in a pig's mask. Now we know his name's Damien. And we've been told that this author has written about him, and he's apparently killed 33 people. Now the killer himself, you never actually see the guy under the mask. You only ever see him wearing this mask, and the mask itself, he wears like a pig's head mask. And I have to say that I didn't think the prosthetics were all that fantastic on it, because it looks like a rubber pig's head mask, not like an actual skin of an animal. So to me, he looks kind of a bit jokey. Doesn't really look all that threatening. And interestingly, most of this film takes place during the day. I don't think of any night scenes, to be honest with you. Well, there's one camping. There's not when the horror starts. There's literally no night scenes, I don't think. So again, that kind of maybe takes away from some of the sort of the creepiness that you may have got. I'm not saying it all has to take place in the night, but it is obviously that much more sort of spooky during the night. So I didn't think the killer was all of that spooky himself. And let me tell you one thing about this film. I said there was going to be spoilers. This killer takes some serious amount of damage, and he's one of these guys. He's one of these sort of bad guys that kind of keeps getting hit down through various means. Just seems to get up without having to take, not sort of being phased at all by this sort of damage, and they simply knock him down about 3 or 4 times, but not one of these times that they actually try and finish him off, and it's so frustrating, you know. And it just, maybe if you're sort of looking at this film of anything other than sort of, you know, just a few beers and you just have it on in the background, I think you'd be questioning this sort of stuff, and you think, why didn't you spend an extra second just to bury the axe in the back of this guy's head? Why would you not do that? So that was frustrating, and you know, kind of you know, it's typical those scenes where you think he's dead, but we all know he's not, and he's going to pop up at some point, and it happens, I say, 3 or 4 times in this movie. So it really does throw these cliches, and also has some very confusing plot points. I just didn't really follow them. I'm not sure if I missed something, or it just wasn't explained very well. And this was basically the author that these guys are going to meet. Turns out that he was the guy on the road that told him to go down this particular path, and we find out that this serial killer has kidnapped his daughter, and for some reason he knocks one of the kids over the head and lets them both get tied up, as well as the daughter. But to what end? I just don't understand what his end game was. I mean, the guy said, "Is this your attempt to try and rescue your daughter?" But I can't understand why he would do that. I just didn't understand it at all. And at first I thought maybe they're all in it together, but apparently he wasn't, because this serial killer actually kills him. So I couldn't understand why he let him get captured, why he let his potential allies get captured, and this guy, you know, if his daughter's kidnapped, why isn't he phoning the sheriff's department and stuff like that? It would just seem ridiculous to me. And it was really frustrating because in the initial part of this film, I thought, oh well, this is going to be quite good. It starts off very much like sort of Wrong Turn and that kind of thing. So I was disappointed with some of the choices that they make. I kind of wanted to like this film because I do enjoy this type of horror film. I like Wrong Turn, you know, I like The Hills Have Eyes, and you know, go back to the Forest Deliverance and things like that. But this one just sort of degenerated into a massive cliche fest and some really just stupid decisions. The acting, I would say, was okay. It's a cast of unknowns. I thought they all did quite well. And like I said earlier on, what I quite liked about them, they were fairly typical, just normal college kids. They weren't all on drugs and getting pissed all the time. They weren't shagging all the time. They all seemed to get on for the most part. And you didn't have your sort of like your standard sort of slutty girl and all of that. So that part of it I kind of liked, but the actual serial killer itself. So the last sort of 2/3 of the film were just very disappointing, unfortunately. Where I think it could have made some decisions and been a lot better film. You know, I could have lived with the guy with the rubbish mask. I mean, I could have lived with that, but just some of these sort of cliche moments and the sort of you know, just a typical sort of like making a noise when you just need to obviously be quiet and things like that. And you know, I can't help but being disappointed with this one, which is a shame because it started off quite well. So I will give this one a 5 out of 10. I'd say it's pretty average. It's nothing it's going to give you no surprises ultimately with this film. But if you do like this sort of like these type of films, these backward serial killer type films, you may get a buzz out of it. But really, you could do a lot better. So have you seen it? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.